The Oscar Pistorius trial has catapulted South Africa's justice system into homes around the world. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight we get a perspective on what the trial and that of Shrien Dewani is doing to the country's reputation. Joining me, Dominik Heil, Managing Director of the Reputation Institute, and David O'Sullivan, who is a journalist. He is a broadcaster. He has been covering the Oscar Pistorius trial from its inception. You could say almost from conception. You've known the guy since he was 17 years old, David.
Just before he went to the Athens Paralympic Games, I met him. He had just discovered athletics. He'd injured himself playing rugby. A man called Fani Lombard, our most medal Paralympian, gave him a set of blades. He strapped them on. He ran 100 meters. They timed it, then Googled to see what the world record was and found he'd broken the world record. And suddenly he was no longer a rugby player. He was an athlete and went on to this incredible prominence. And I watched him at the Olympics and Paralympics in London, and then saw him in the dock.
And then you watched him throw his life away.
Yeah, absolutely.
The trial is unprecedented in so many ways. He has a superhero of South African sport and society. He has a superhero on the global stage, put on trial for not his life as per se, but for the life as he knew it, for killing a woman. The facts were undisputed, but
yes,
we put this man on trial in a very public way in South Africa. How's it changed the way in which the law operates?
It didn't change the way the law operated. We struggled a little in the beginning with the media and the judiciary finding one another, what could be allowed and what couldn't be allowed in court. But there was a very well-articulated court order that had been granted by the North Gauteng Court's Judge President, Judge Mlambo. And so Judge Masipa herself she had the discretion to change the access that the cameras had at various stages. But the way the criminal justice system, our jurisprudence, the way that operated, that remained unchanged. It was just now, there were cameras watching. You could have walked in, any member of the public could have walked in on any day and sat in the public gallery and watched exactly what they were seeing on TV.
And we can go into any court on any day of the week as well and watch justice being meted out.
Exactly. Was
there pizzazz? Was there razzmatazz? Was there a little bit of LA law applied in the courtroom? Was it different?
No. Judge Masipa, bless her, was completely oblivious to anything that was going on around her. We could see it in her demeanor, and you could see it in the way she handled sentencing. When the issues of the media were raised, she said, I don't have any regard for that. And I believe it. She needed Twitter explained to her when an issue of tweeting Gert Simon, the pathologist's testimony, came up. I don't think either that the advocates were grandstanding, because anybody who knows Barry Roux says that's Barry Roux. What you saw on camera is the way he behaves in court, and the same with Gerrie Nel. Outside the court, that was a different thing. That was where we had the media circus at play.
But that would happen in any trial, in any high-profile trial anyway, regardless of what was going in and out of the courtroom. South Africa, justice system on trial. Dominik, how did we fare?
Well, I think it is a question of whether this portrayed South Africa in a fair manner. There is this sort of obsession that we need a better and better and better reputation. What we really do need is people to see South Africa in the way it is. And I think the trial showed a lot about what the tensions in South African society are. And I suppose everyone can make up their own mind of whether we feel that this trial showed South Africa with all its warts and wrinkles and its strength, and I think it showed all of those things. So I think that we didn't do too badly out of the whole thing. I mean, as a country.
As a journalist of 30 years, as an international broadcaster, as a correspondent for many of the global news networks, David, you've got a pretty good idea of what people think about us from the outside world. Have we enhanced or have we lowered our global reputation?
I don't think either, really. I think we're still on an even keel. I think unless people came in with preconceptions that we have some form of jungle justice here in South Africa. But I was never asked, when I was doing media interviews with foreign organizations, or even standing alongside the foreign journalists covering this trial, there was never a sense that I'm surprised by what happens in your courtrooms, either negatively or positively. There was just an understanding this is the way it goes. But our criminal justice system is based on Roman Dutch law, on English law. So anybody understands the adversarial system of criminal justice would go, okay, well, that's the way it's played out.
And so healthy then, from the perspective of this is a system that works.
Yes.
You can be the global superstar who's brought to justice.
That's right. What it did show was that if you've got money, it can buy you certain things such as expert witnesses.
But that's a global phenomenon, Dominik.
Exactly. If you compare that to, say, the O.J. Simpson trial, you had similar issues and also people weren't happy with the outcome, and you have this sort of thing playing out in the media. I think we did fairly comparably to that. And I think that people could see that we have a good justice system. I think that ultimately we benefited from it because obviously South Africa got a lot of publicity from it. And I think South Africa always benefits when it's put in the limelight because our reputation suffers because people don't know us.
Or does this simply amplify the negative of South Africa? Does it simply amplify, here is a guy, a global superstar, so petrified in his own home in a security estate that he sleeps with a gun next to his bed and then lets loose with 4 shots in the middle of the night without questioning who is behind the door?
Oh, sure. I mean, but isn't that the reality in South Africa?
I don't think so. I constantly got asked that, is that the way you live your life? I said, there's a very small group of people that are that paranoid. I had armed robbers bursting into my house earlier this year. Didn't make me go and sleep with a gun under my bed or anything. Didn't make me as paranoid as Oscar Pistorius is. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Oscar is living proof of that. But it got projected onto all white male South Africans. There's a gun culture. We don't have that kind of gun culture.
And that's the risk we face here, because suddenly we're portraying a particular case as precedent for the nation.
I don't think so. I think people are cleverer than we give them credit for. Is people see that Oscar Pistorius had issues, personal issues, and if you have personal issues, they get amplified in a certain way in a society like South Africa. I don't think people around the world now think that that's perfectly normal in South Africa. They just sort of see that aspect of society.
Let's go back then to when Annie Dewani was shot and killed in Cape Town. When Annie Dewani was shot and killed, the world's attention turned on South Africa. Here is this beautiful newlywed bride butchered on the streets of Cape Town, one of the most dangerous places in the world. Max Clifford, bless his cotton socks. Is he in jail yet?
Yes, he is.
He is in jail as a paedophile. Assaulting South Africa's global reputation. You see, you can't even go to South Africa as a tourist without getting your life taken away from you. Hired by Shrien Dewani's family, of course, to represent his interests in this particular matter. We're a great country for disinformation. People are willing to believe the worst of us.
Well, my experience in doing this kind of research about reputation is people are cleverer than we make them out to be. And I think that people are seeing that Dewani is exploiting sort of a reputation that includes crime to justify his actions. And I think that I'm more worried actually about, for example, the reputation of the Indian community out of this.
I beg your pardon? Explain.
Well, I mean, so here Indians who are coming from overseas, who are using South Africa in a way, it sort of, it always projects on individuals, and we, if it's a German tax fraudster, it has also implications. So people represent a multitude of identities, and I think that people do know that we have a crime problem in South Africa, and that is highlighted does not necessarily mean that our reputation is going to suffer. That's that is known, and people do know how to put that in context, and they also know that this is a beautiful country and that we had a fantastic World Cup and that we have a functioning legal system.
Yeah, what concerns me is the way this Dewani trial is going. Because we've got 3 people who are jailed, one of them has now passed away, but 3 people giving a version of events and implicating Shrien Dewani. It seems, I think in everybody's minds, it's a slam dunk. He was the mastermind of this. But it still has to be proved. Now, Judge Jeanette Traversa sits there and she disabuses herself of all of that. She says, tell me the story again and show me how he fits in. And these state witnesses are unraveling on the witness stand. And the way, if it continues like this, unless the prosecution's got some tricks up their sleeve, there is a likelihood, and I know I'll stand accused of being prejudging, but just at this early stage, the way it's going, he may get off. Yeah. And then what does it do for the reputation of our criminal justice system? It should be our criminal justice system works. Because if this adversarial system, the state has the onus to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And he is afforded exactly that as well.
Which is healthy. And if the state fails to do its job, well, that's the state failing to do its job.
The witnesses aren't able to convince the judge. The doubt is created. He is entitled to an acquittal. But I don't think I'm hard-pressed to find a single person who says that Shrien Dewani isn't guilty. Everybody's made up their minds, in Britain as well. What if there's an acquittal?
And that's possibly the bigger reputational risk that we face. The Dewani trial, which is happening happening in camera.
Yes. Without camera.
Without camera.
Yeah. I mean, you can walk into court. Yes. You can watch it happening.
Absolutely.
No problem.
But it's not happening on live television.
No.
We don't have the same sort of Truman Show experiences we did with Oscar Pistorius. But this is almost more crucial for South Africa's reputation than the Oscar trial.
That's right. Yes. And unfortunately, it's going to have this unfortunate consequence that the criminal justice system will work perfectly, but it'll be seen as a negative should he be acquitted. Yeah. And he's entitled to it.
Absolutely. If the state fails to do its job, then that is the way the system works. It's exactly. Not perfect. And again, it's money talking, I suppose. I mean, you mentioned earlier Oscar Pistorius with his state witnesses, with his expert witnesses, yes. Who came into court. He spent an awful lot of money on them. That's probably the biggest amount of money he wasted, because they weren't particularly helpful.
They were terrible. Well, in fact, just look at one of the probation officer, Annette Vergeer, who was paid to do a report. I have never known a judge to cane a witness as badly as she was caned. The judge did not give up in her criticism of just how poor she was. She deserved every bit of it. But Roger Dixon, Wally Volmarans, all of these witnesses who came forward with these last-minute reports, and sometimes not even having had reports, but were paid, it didn't do his case any good whatsoever. He still managed to escape the murder charge, but it wasn't because of his expert witnesses.
South Africa, the country to come to take out your bride, but not to hire expert witnesses. I can see the payoff line already there. People expect very little from us, is my expectation, the post-Mandela Rainbow Nation era. We can win more easily in the positive PR stakes than we win when we do things well on an everyday basis. Dominik?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yes, of course, we are put in the limelight again. And when you're put in the limelight, your reputation is affected. So it is obviously really important how well the courts are functioning, how things are handled around those cases, no question. The thing that we need to ask ourselves, though, not is sort of, are we shown in the best possible light, but are we shown in a fair manner? Because there is this strange obsession with we must be liked more, we must be trusted more. Well, if people trust me that I can outrun Usain Bolt, it doesn't help me. We need to be seen in a fair manner, and I think that the Oscar Pistorius trial has shown us in a reasonably fair manner, though obviously an extreme end of our society. Yeah. Quite correctly what David was saying.
In 12 seconds, is he right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that with Oscar Pistorius, our country's reputation took a knock because we had no more global icons. Nelson Mandela had passed away and he was on trial. There were no other international people from South Africa, and now that one's in jail and one's dead, where do we get how do we enhance our reputation globally? Through individuals.
Absolutely. David O'Sullivan, thank you. And Dominik Heil, Managing Director of the Reputation Institute. David O'Sullivan from Carte Blanche, and also the man who intimately covered the Oscar trial. Thank you for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, good night and goodbye.